Welcome back to Never Found, the series where the lines between the seen and the unseen blur, and the most chilling questions are left unanswered. This episode, listeners, is going to be a little longer than usual, and there is a reason for that. Because tonight, we're diving into one of the most unnerving, thoroughly documented, and still unresolved paranormal cases in recent Indian history. A case that earned itself a chilling nickname, the Annabelle of India. But unlike her American cousin, who now sits behind glass in the Warren's Occult Museum, this doll was never bound by holy prayers of famous demonologists. No. This pink teddy bear, found in a quiet home in the Indian town of Bhubaneswar, unleashed terror in real time. And to this day, some of the answers remain never found. So, what makes this case so different? What is the mystery that defies explanation? Was it a child's spirit, a murdered woman, or something far darker pretending to be innocent? And why did this one ordinary looking doll become the center of paranormal chaos? This is that story. It all began in 2017. A grandmother living in Bhubaneswar started seeing a woman in a red sari. Nothing new for the neighborhood, except this woman would appear and then jump off the roof. When the family would rush to check, there would be no body. No one. Just silence. Soon after, neighbors on the floor below reported something even more scary. Dinner plates being flung across the room by unseen hands. Furniture shifting. The walls crying late at night. And the night brought with it a chill. Rooms that were warm all day turned freezing cold after sunset. One neighbor swore they saw a red shadow pass behind the curtain in a closed room. The situation worsened when the woman's oldest grandson attempted to investigate. So while he was recording a video on the rooftop one evening, he heard a voice call out his name, after which a black shadow jumped at him, pushing him violently. He rolled, got heavily wounded and scared. And it wasn't just him. Another family member reportedly woke up with 3 claw-like scratches across his chest, burning like fire. The grandmother believed it was not an accident. She believed the same entity had killed her son and daughter-in-law, the boy's parents, under mysterious circumstances. And she was terrified she might be next. With nowhere else to turn, the family contacted PAIRS, the full form of which is the Parapsychology and Investigations Research Society, India's leading paranormal research group. Now, PAIRS, when they got to know of this, they dispatched 3 investigators: Sarbjit Mohanty, a demonologist, psychic medium Pooja Vijay, and their tech expert Savio Furtado. Even before arriving, the case gave them chills. Pooja, after simply viewing photos of the home, had a violent, clairvoyant vision. She felt herself choking. She saw ropes. She said it felt like someone had been strangled to death inside that house. Her vision logged onto a banyan tree behind the house, while she did not even know one existed there. She also described a female presence watching the family constantly, especially the children. Now, when this team arrived, they began a full lockdown investigation. Cameras, EMF meters, motion detectors, audio recorders, everything, all of it. And that's when they found it, the doll. A small pink teddy bear, absolutely looking harmless, lying on the floor of an upstairs room. The family said, eerily, they didn't recognize it. It wasn't theirs. They never bought it, but it was there, waiting. So when Sarbjeet brought an EMF meter near the bear, it lit up brightly, repeatedly, spiking in ways no ordinary toy with no electronics, no batteries ever should. They tested it in different rooms. The EMF spikes followed the doll. And outside, the team monitoring the terrace radioed in. They could hear heavy footsteps pacing the rooftop, but no one was there. And the footsteps were followed by a loud bang, but nothing had fallen. Inside, one investigator began gagging, clutching his throat, as if he couldn't breathe. He dropped to the ground, whispering that something was choking him. In a bold move, Sarbjeet snatched the doll and threw it in the corner of the room, hoping to break the entity's hold. But it did not work. Moments later, their cameraman screamed. He was being dragged backwards across the floor. And when they pulled him free, somehow, they found 5 deep bruise-like marks on his leg, like someone had grabbed him with hands, invisible hands. And the scary part? Those marks vanished within hours. Now this group, the pair's investigators, they regrouped in the kitchen. Obviously, they were shaken. And during this time, they heard knocking sounds coming from the storage room, the room where the doll had been moved. When they returned to the upstairs room, the doll, which Sarbjeet, if you remember, I had told you he had thrown it across the room, the doll was back in its original spot, sitting upright, still, and watching. So the team set up thermal cameras, and one of the cameras recorded a cold handprint appearing on the wall. Right after another team member said he felt something icy touch his shoulder. They also picked up audio of a female voice whispering what sounded like, "My home." The primary investigators have publicly discussed this case, providing their insights and their interpretation of the frightening events. So Sarbjeet Mohanty, who led the team, has emphasized how extraordinary this haunting was even for the seasoned ghost hunters. "This is the kind of evidence we live for," Mohanty said, describing the excitement when they collected so much verifiable data in one night. In interviews, he noted that most cases turn out to have normal explanations, but this one stood out as truly unexplainable and dangerous. So in the words of Mohanty, out of every 10 cases we receive, 9 are logical and have a scientific explanation. But the incident with the doll, according to Mohanty and the team of PAIR's investigators, clearly fell into that rare 1 of the 10 cases that defied logical solution or reasoning. So the team psychic Pooja, she provided critical information through her abilities. She described entering a trance-like focus when examining the case photos. And if you remember, we had told you that she had seen a woman dressed in red who was being strangled. She said, "I saw the woman die." Now, this vision gave the team a crucial lead about the spirit's identity. The spirit was a murder victim, even before they encountered the entity themselves. Pooja's vision of the woman's death and even the detail of a large tree on the property under which the body was likely buried, turned out to align very closely with what the team later found and also documented. So her commentary highlights how a combination of psychic insight and tech evidence can together paint a full picture in paranormal investigations. Now, if you remember the third team member, Savio Furtado, he has spoken in general about how terrifying this case was for the team. In a live stream talk, the team mentioned that the Bhubaneswar doll case was one of the most frightening and memorable experiences of their career. They noted how rare it is to have so many different phenomena, visual, audio, physical, occur in one location in a single night. Now, Furtado, in an interview, explained how the team uses a scientific approach first. So they measure EMF, they check for environmental causes, and only label something paranormal when everything else, everything normal, has been ruled out. In this house, listeners, every test for a normal explanation failed. There were no high EMF emitters or leaks that could cause hallucinations. No open windows or earthquakes to explain moving objects. Now, this gave them the confidence that the happenings were genuine. It always helps if we are given a complete history and necessary details, Furtado has said. We investigate, we document, and then we analyze our findings, which goes on for a month. At this point, it is either solved, or if no one can explain it, we confirm it as evidence of paranormal activity. In the doll case, after extensive review and consultation with other researchers, the evidence remained unexplained by any normal means, leading the pair's investigators to indeed confirm this as a true haunting. Now, listeners, for our benefit, let's also talk about some similarities with this doll and the Annabelle case in the US. Now, the doll was a Raggedy Ann, this is how it was called, possessed by a spirit pretending to be a girl named Annabelle Higgins. And if you remember our previous episode where we had spoken about Ed and Lorraine Warren, famed demonologists, they had investigated the case and locked the door in their occult museum surrounded by holy objects. But in Bhubaneswar, there was no museum, no priests, just 3 investigators facing off against something truly aggressive, something intelligent, and very ancient. And no clear answers. So the team captured video evidence, as we had said earlier. Misty forms appearing on a night vision camera, EMF spikes near the doll, heavy thuds on command, even thermal anomalies. So one video showed the doll's arm slightly lifting on its own, followed by a loud bang against the wall. In another moment, a small candy that was placed near the doll was found bitten into, human-like tooth marks on it in a sealed room. The spirit never spoke clearly, but one thing was evident. It was angry, possibly vengeful, possibly a woman murdered inside that very house, possibly someone's daughter-in-law, or someone forgotten. One night, the knocking sounds turned into rhythmic tapping, like someone trying to communicate in code. And then came the laughing, faint, muffled, like a child giggling from behind the door. The child in the house mentioned an imaginary friend who whispered violent things. Now, this child in the house, listeners, if you remember, initially when we started the story, we told you about that grandmother's grandson who had scratch marks on his chest, whose parents were killed mysteriously. We're referring to that child in the house. Now, the family would hear muffled laughter at night, followed by cold gusts of air from closed rooms. Another recording had a voice respond yes when asked if it wanted help. So, was the doll her child's toy? Was it hers? Or was it a vessel something used to bind her to the home. It was also found that the entity attacked male members more violently, a pattern matching the original Annabelle case, where male figures were the target of scratches and psychic attacks. One of the pair's members even noted that the 3 scratch marks, a paranormal symbol often associated with demonic mockery of the Holy Trinity, showed up on his back the night after they tried to bless the room. Another team member, who challenged the spirit during the EVP session, woke with deep bruises under his ribs the next day. The pair's team tried very hard to identify the spirits. Names like Shabnam came through the spirit box. At one point, the word daughter, child was recorded. They suspected it might be a young mother's spirit, or worse, something pretending to be one. Pairs eventually conducted a cleansing ritual. They explained to the spirit that she was no longer alive and that she needed to move on. And surprisingly, strangely, it worked. The attacks stopped and the air was clear again. And the doll, that pink bear, was removed from the house and locked away by the pair's team. So this remains in their private archives, no longer active, but still a mystery. Why that doll? Who was the spirit? Was it truly a murdered woman or something darker in disguise? None of these questions were ever fully answered. So in summary, listeners, the doll's history is intertwined with the ghost's history. The likely narrative is that a woman in red sari was murdered, strangled to death on the same house years ago, and her body was hidden under the tree. Now she left behind something precious, possibly a child whose toy was this pink doll. In death, her spirit attached to the doll and remained in the house, filled with rage and sorrow. So when the new occupants, the grandmother's family, moved in, especially with children present, one possibly being the ghost's own child if the relative theory is true, the spirit's activity surged. She wanted revenge against those she deemed responsible and wanted to protect her child. This explains the poltergeist outbursts and attacks. Now, once this backstory was understood and respected, the child's welfare seen to, and the spirit told she was dead, she finally released her hold on the doll and the house. We believe this is why the story belongs here in the Never Found series. Because despite the evidence, despite the injuries, the footage, the visions, we never found the spirit's name. We never found the body under the tree. We never found the full truth behind that cursed doll. And maybe we never will. And so, the pink teddy bear sits sealed away, silent, still, harmless, for now. But what it held, the energy, the rage, the sorrow, lingers in the minds of those who were there. The investigators who watched their equipment light up in a sealed room. The child who whispered about an invisible friend. The grandmother who feared that history might repeat itself. Listeners, this is not a tale from a horror film. This was a haunting that unfolded in a quiet Indian neighborhood, captured, documented, and locked away. And yet, the spirit's true name, her story, her pain remained buried. Just like her body might be under that ancient banyan tree. Some stories end with answers. This one ends with silence. Because in the world of the unexplained, not everything wants to be found. Listeners, if this story gave you chills, helped you see the paranormal in a new light, or made you double check the corner of your room tonight, do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who loves a good haunting. And don't forget, we're just getting started. On the next episode of Never Found, we will shift from the paranormal to the criminal, a murder that baffled police for over a decade. A case gone cold. No motive, no weapon, no killer. Just one lifeless body. And a trail of questions that never led anywhere. That story next week. Same time, same shadows. Until then, keep the lights on. And remember, some things are hidden for a reason. This was Never Found. Thanks for listening.